What's up, everyone? Welcome back. We got a good one for you guys today. I figured I'd bring you guys to a how-to video of how to change a gear ring on a Drexel. It's going to require a couple things. It's going to require me to take off all this motors, the steering motor, a couple other things. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. Remember, I'm a trained professional, so don't do this at home. Do this with supervision or if you're trained. But without further ado, let's get to it. All right, first things first. First thing you want to do is unplug your machine. Make sure there's no power going to it. Once you unplug the machine, you got no power going to any of your other components, so you don't electrocute yourself. Safety first. Make sure you always do that. If you want to press the stop switch in, feel free. I mean, it does nothing where there's no power, but visually I like pressing it for some reason, so I'll press it in. After you do that, you want to start disconnecting some things. All right, first things first, you want to disconnect your proximity sensor. If you're a person that forgets where things are, I suggest labeling them. Some of these stuff are self-explanatory, but some of them can be a slightly bit confusing, so I suggest labeling if you're a person that forgets. But take this, put it to the side. You're going to take your, I believe this is a 4mm, is it? No, 5mm. 5mm hex head. Loosen this up, back out all your screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So after you take off your 4 bolts, sorry for the shakiness, I'm using one hand. After you take off your 4 bolts, there is a connector back here. One of these douche connectors, however you want to call them. You want to disconnect this. I'm probably going to cut away and do that by hand. There you go. Magic. Unplugged it. You have another wire that goes directly to your controller right here. You don't need to disconnect it because all you're going to do is shift this over to the side and get it out of the way. So that way you have more space to take off the motor and a lot of these bolts. All right, so it's up and out of the way. This plate goes on the bottom, similar to a washer. If you can see in there, you can see that it's grooved. I'll give you guys a better look when I take it out, but that's the reason why we're changing it. All right, so next step, you can disconnect all the wires going to your motor, which would be your U, V, and W. Good note is to label your boots. If you got to label the actual connector itself, feel free. That way you know what's going where. If not, it's going to run in reverse or it's going to short circuit. So make sure you get these wires correct. All right, so we got these disconnected over here. I like to put the bolts back on it so I don't lose them. I do have a little compartment to hold on my bolts and stuff like that, but it's better to keep this on here. That way you don't lose them whenever you're moving stuff around. You want to disconnect this one and this one. This goes to your tachometer, pretty much, your encoder, sorry. And this is your traction control. Traction temperature. Boom, disconnect that one. Disconnect that one. Move that to the side. There's one in the back. That's for your brakes. You're gonna wanna disconnect that. I gotta cut away to use 2 hands. All right, so I got that disconnected. The next step would be either one of 2 things. You can either take the motor out completely the way it is, or you can take off the brakes up top to make it slightly lighter. These are pretty heavy, so the whole assembly together is super heavy as it is. I'm gonna choose to leave it on and take it off that way. But again, this is the way I would do it. Other people would do it different ways. You're gonna start by removing all of these bolts right here. This one, this one, this one, and this one. There's 2 other ones in the back that you wanna remove before you start taking off the motor. Once your nuts are all out, or bolts are all out, you want to take your pry bars. I usually use both of my long ones. You're going to want to stick them somewhere where you can leverage it up, because this is almost impossible to pull out on your own. Just be careful when you use your pry bars not to go too far in there and touch any of your coils. I mean, it's not energized or anything, but you don't want to damage any of it, so when you go to put the motor back on. So usually I take it about here, give or take. See that lip? I would do the same thing on the other side. Pry it up a little bit on both sides so they come out evenly. Then you pull this completely out. All right, now that it's pried up like this and you have it separated from there, you're gonna wanna take this entire motor, lift it up and put it to the side carefully. Don't drop it, remember it's pretty heavy. So be careful, lift with your legs, not your back. All right, so we got the tire off. Your next step is to actually drop the gearbox. There's a couple ways to do it. You can either take your wood blocks, place them underneath there, stable it up real nice. Or if you're lucky enough to have a homemade jig or homemade bracket, which would be this, it's basically the same lug pattern as the tires. You're just gonna fit this on there. You're gonna drop it down to floor level, undo your bolts up top here, lift up the truck pretty much completely, because you're gonna need all that room to be able to pull the gear out. All right, don't mind me if I sound a little winded. It was a little bit of work. As you can see, I got my jack stands underneath the counterweights. That way, God forbid this fails on me, at least I have that to protect me. And yes, you do have to lift it up this high, so that way this ring can fit through these side holes here. You're gonna take this and pull it out. All right, so we got it out. We pulled it out to where it's at right now. This is basically for the proximity sensor to see the plate. So make sure you don't damage that or mess that up, because you're gonna need that to calibrate when you're done. The next step I'm gonna do is probably clean all this gunk off, but this is why we're changing the gearbox, the gear. You see this? The bottom portion is the spot that wasn't touching the steering motor. The top portion is the damaged portion, all the wear. It's actually pretty sharp, almost razor sharp on each one of these gears. It's supposed to be slightly squared off, like the bottom. All right, so the next step would be taking off every one of these bolts here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe it is. Or 8, whatever, I can't count. But you're gonna take these off to be able to pull this entire ring out of it. All right, so we started taking off all the bolts. This is a part of the video I was hoping not to get to, but it looks like we're running into some bonus content here. If you notice, these round out very easily. I have 3 of them actually. So it gives me an excuse to show you guys the Icon extractor set. These are pretty cool. The whole set in general is 25 piece. Comes with a nice little foam. I know it has instructions somewhere, but I think I threw it away. But as you can see, it has all different sizes. And on the actual extractor itself, it tells you what size drill bit you would need. 5/32 drill bit. So that's pretty cool. So you get your 5/32 drill bit to make your initial hole. Then you get, on this one would be a 13mm or a 1/2 inch socket. You put it on here. Once you drill your hole, you toss it in here, start loosening it. Since it's reverse thread on the actual remover, it'll grab and then loosen that up. The reason why these strip, not only are the bolts semi-soft, but they're also Loctited into the actual gearbox itself. So it's kind of hard to get those out. I was able to get 5 out of the 8. So here we go. All right, I was able to take out those bolts. I don't know if you guys can see in the time lapse, but it did have to up the size of the extractor I had, because I did use that initial extractor a lot and actually wore it out a little bit. But I was able to get those 3 bolts out. What you're gonna do is you're gonna get yourself like a dead blow hammer similar to this, and be gentle. You're not gonna hit it like if you're gonna drive something in, but you're gonna give it a couple love taps around the ring. Remember, these rings are upwards of like $3,000, so sometimes they want to try to save it as much as possible. So make sure you give it a couple love taps till it gets loose. All right, so we got it out. Now you can see a little bit better what I was talking about. This is the way the gear should look normally. See how the teeth go squared off and down? This is what they look like now, sharp and worn down. They're almost razor sharp on each one of these edges, which is allowing too much slop. So the gears that line up with each other is not perfectly tight. You start noticing that the tire starts to wobble a little bit, so your driving is a little off, and that can affect a couple of things. It can affect your proximity sensor in there. It can affect the way you drive, the way you handle. So this is very important to swap out. If this ever happens to you guys, see how sharp that is? Definitely not supposed to be like that. You can see if I can get you the other one with one hand. Oops, dropped my funnel. This is the new one. See the difference? Definitely huge difference on that. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is also clean whatever shavings I had on here and everything else. I'm also gonna check the gear oil by opening this up and making sure the gear oil is at a good level, because God knows when's the next time this is gonna be taken off. So good thing to do whenever you do something like this, that you tear down big stuff, is to clean everything up, check everything that can be checked here. That way you don't have to do double the job, whether it be, let's say it was bad gears inside of it or whatever. You don't put this back in, let it run, and then a week later they call you back to do the same job, because as you can see, it's a decent amount of work to get the stuff out. So next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna take your new one, which is this one right here. You can see inside of here there's some, oh, this doesn't have it, I gotta take it off of that one, where there's some pins. See those set pins right over there? Those set pins, oh, they are here. Can't really see. Also, let's see, one of these, and you're gonna line it up the way you had it, which would be this, inside of these holes. There is a specific spot. Let's see if I can get you guys mounted up somewhere a little bit better so you can see. All right, a little bit better. All right, so what we're gonna do is we'll take this old one and put this to the side, which chances are we're either gonna try to resurface it or use it for some type of refurb or a used scenario where the customer doesn't want to spend full price. But on here, if you notice, there's the screw right here. It goes over on this side. On the bottom, there is 2 screws. This is for your proximity plate. So this goes generally in the front area. So you kind of want to line that up properly. You're going to take it, line it up. All right. Hold on tight. I'm going to go grab my dead blow. All right. So I got my softer dead blow, that way I don't damage any of the gears or the gear itself. Great hammer to have. I know this has a dead blow or a soft mallet. I heard somebody call it a bacha gloob, which is the first time I've ever heard that before. If you guys ever heard that, please put it in the comments below, but that's what it is. But once you line it up real nice, start giving it some love taps. Give it a couple love taps. It's nice and flush. When you start putting your bolts in there, it'll squeeze tighter, obviously. So you want to Loctite these, that way they don't back out. Because if this backs out, it rubs up against something, it snaps things off. All right, so let's get to it. All right, with that said, now you put back your proximity plate where it goes, tighten everything down, everything has Loctite on it. There's no torque specification on these that I know of. I can look that up for you guys, but as long as it's nice and snug with Loctite, you guys are good to go. The only real advice I can give you is when you slap all this back together, put spline grease on the spline of this motor. That way you can lube it up real nice in here. I already checked the gear oil off camera. I forgot to record that, but gear oil's good. Clean this off real nice. The entire gearbox itself is decently cleaned off. This like grayish stuff is like what's left over. Let's see if I can just take that off real quick while I'm on the camera with you guys. Not really necessary, because once this goes back on, it's gonna get dirty within 5 minutes of using it, but it's good to clean all that gunk off. Make sure you have nice finished work. Slap this back on. I'm not going to show you guys the rest of the video how to do that, because the way you took it off is the way you put it back on. No big deal. Hope you guys like that how-to. This is a decent amount of work. So far it's been about like an hour and change, so be mindful that this does take a little bit of time, and then see you guys in the next one. Peace.